What it actually led to, of course, was the turbo revolution, because Renault, having pioneered turbocharged road cars, started to bring in turbocharged racing engines. But to the end of 1985, it was the Cosworth era of Formula One, and all these cars are powered by Cosworth's double 4-valve, the DFV V8. So this race is based on the results of race 1. The top third of the grid is reversed, so there were 28 cars, a third of 28 is just a bit over 9, so the winner starts in 9th, 9th place car starts in 1st, beyond 9th they start where they finish. So Christoph Dansenburg and Steve Brooks in the Williams and the Lotus are on row 1. Steve Hartley's McLaren, Lucas Halusa on row 2, Werner Dansenburg in the Brabham will hopefully rejoin from the back, and then Simon Fisher's Arrows. Ahead of our podium finish is Jamie Constable and Matthew Wrigley in their Tyrrells, and our race winner yesterday, that is Stuart Hall. He will start 9th ahead of the shadow of Mark Harrison. And there should be all 28 cars ready to go. Hopefully Werner Dansenburg's Brabham will run. That ran very well yesterday. It is the only Brabham in the field. It will be a shame to lose that. So most of the cars are from the sort of 1981 to 3 seasons, the end of the era, and one of them never raced before. That's the Lotus 88B, the twin chassis Lotus that you saw with Nick Padmore, car number 1. Fantastic sight and sound of a Cosworth-engined Formula One field lapping around Silverstone. Most of the cars from the Just Pre and Ground Effect era of the early 1980s, but you just saw a quick shot of the ex-Clay Regazzoni Shadow that Ewan Surgison is driving. There are a few high airbox 1970s cars here as well. And of course, in years gone by, we've had 1960s cars in the Cosworth era. The Lotuses and Brabhams of the late 1960s, the Cosworth Formula One engine introduced in 1968. But in the background you can see the high airbox on the yellow and blue Matchbox Surtees, that car being driven by Chris Perkins. And Alistair Douglas, always an aural delight as well as a visual delight, these cars. The Cosworth DFV sounds like nothing else.
Indeed, it's a unique sound, and it's not really, yes, it's been developed over the years and a little bit more high-pitched, higher revving in the latter years of the DFV, but essentially the sound has never changed, and it really warms the cockles of your heart when you hear these cars.
So because these cars are very high speed, they'll be touching 190 miles an hour down the Hanger Straight, no slower than they were in period, very little slower at all. A bit of a wave there from Mark Higson. Quite sure why he was waving to our Lec driver, Peter Williams. They are starting side by side, so the final formation lap, and then it will be a 20-minute sprint. So this is a real Formula Ford length race, but for Formula One cars, it is going to be very busy indeed. And as Stuart Hall was telling Ed earlier, hadn't really realised that as yesterday's race winner he'd start almost at the back of the top 10, but that is the case. So he will have to try and go from 9th to 1st in 20 minutes, which will be not much over 10 laps. So that's the task. He's only got to pass 8 cars, but he's only got about 10 laps in which to do it. There he is in the, we're just going to have a shot in the Ram March. All sorts of Marlboro McLarens. You can see the orange and white colours, very familiar of the early 1980s Arrows. Did you see the Brabham at the back of the field?
Just pointing that out, yes. Werner Dansenburg seems to have got to the back of the field.
Now, if the car is running, you would sort of hope that he might try and resume his position in 6th place, but I think that might be a little bit of an ambitious ask. There goes the Rothmans March of Stuart Hall. Again, that car in period, in the same livery, was not as successful as it has been here. A whole slew of Tyrrells, 2 team cars, as we heard from James Hagan from the 1982 season, the Tyrrell 011. Michele Alboreto winning the Detroit Grand Prix, and that, unless I'm incorrect, and I often am, that was the last Formula One win for a Cosworth DFV engine, I think.
Yes, Detroit 83.
Oh, 83, okay, so the following year. So that wouldn't have been Alboreto, was that?
It was Alboreto.
So 83 was whom in 83?
Alboreto.
It was Alboreto,
83,
okay.
yeah.
All right, so he may. So it's a 1982 car, but won the Detroit Grand Prix in 1983. They didn't always replace the cars every single year. So those are the two Benetton livery cars. We've also got denim liveried Tyrrell with dark green, and the blue candy liveried Tyrrell as well. That's the car of Matthew Wrigley, who finished third yesterday, starting on pole position. So they're closing the field up a little bit. Monun's Shadows, designed by Maurice Nunn. The blue and yellow matchbox liveried Surtees of John Surtees' team. The TS06. But at the front of the field, it is Williams and Lotus who lead us to the line. Ready to go green. We go green at Silverstone for 20 minutes of Formula One action from the Masters Racing Legends. The 66 to 85 Cosworth engine Grand Prix era. Pole sitter Christoph Dansenburg in the Williams FW07 leads from Steve Brooks in the black and gold JPS Lotus 91. Right behind Steve Hartley's McLaren. And then slotting into fourth from fourth on the grid, Lucas Halusa in the number 4 car. That is the Williams FW08. And of course, this track's so important for Williams. They claimed their first Grand Prix win here with Clay Regazzoni and won here a number of times. And of course, also Keke Rosberg in an FW08 set the fastest ever qualifying lap at Silverstone at 160 mile an hour average on the old Grand Prix circuit. Race underway, Stuart Hall already between the two Tyrrells that he beat to the line yesterday. Jamie Constable and Matthew Wrigley, and Stuart Hall goes by. There's the arrows of Simon Fish, the orange and white car on the outside. Hall's got the inside line. This is down into Copse, what would have been the first corner for all these cars in period, and he's already up into the top half dozen. Great start from yesterday's winner, Stuart Hall, in the Ram March. And
importantly for Stuart Hall, he is ahead of Matthew Wrigley, who couldn't quite make his way through as quickly, but as you say, both somewhere near the top 6, if not in the top 6, as they come through Beckett's for the first time. And down onto the Hangar Straight, we can see Christoph Dansenburg leads in the Williams FW07C. Then it's Steve Brooks in the Lotus 91 and being challenged by Steve Hartley in the McLaren MP41. And then next up is Stuart Hall. Yeah. So I reckon that puts him in 5th place. Well, it puts him in 4th place, I think. So that is the battle for 4th. He's got the 2 Tyrrells behind him. In fact, he's got Lucas Halusa's FW08 behind as well, so he's got by him, but as he runs out a little bit wide, looks like Matthew Wrigley in the blue Candy Tyrrell was trying to get by him. He didn't. Steve Hartley, 77. That is the McLaren MP41, the 1982 car, ex-John Watson car, the first Formula One car with an all-carbon composite tub, and Stuart Hall dives down the inside. Now, we heard Stuart saying they've dialed off a bit of rear wing for maximum speed on the straights. That's going to make colder tyres and low grip pretty tricky in some of these corners, but it looks like he's won the battle up to 3rd place already. In front of him, Steve Brooks in one of the number of different cars he's running here. The Lotus turns in and down the inside. Through comes Matthew Wrigley. He too goes ahead of Steve Hartley, so he's up to 4th. Hot on the heels of Stuart Hall. He wants to make it more of a race for Stewie this time out. And the other Tyrrell struggling to make ground, and that's Jamie Constable's green machine. Hasn't quite caught this group yet, so Stuart Hall looking inside the Lotus for 2nd place. Goes by Steve Brooks, 1 car in front of him, and we're still on lap 1 of the race. And the phrase hot knife through butter comes to mind with Stuart Hall. What an amazing first lap and a half. He's already up to 2nd place. Matt Wrigley now challenging the Lotus of Steve Brooks, going all the way around the outside of Beckett's. Very close indeed, has to take 2 wheels onto the edge on the curbing, but he does get through. So second place is Stuart Hall. Stuart's got a problem. He's got a visor problem, and he takes a tear off. So somewhere in that first lap and a half, he's had oil onto his visor, I would suspect, or water maybe, and he's just doing a tear off there to give himself clear vision. But that seems to be all sorted, and they're into Club Corner with now Matt Wrigley right behind him in third place.
Yeah, the tear off didn't tear off, it actually pulled his visor open, which is not what you want at 170 plus miles an hour going down into Stowe, because that sort of wind really doesn't help your vision. It is still Christoph Dansenburg's Lotus Williams that leads. Stuart Hall in second place, though, is right with him, and Matt Wrigley is right with him. Then the battle of Steve Brooks and Steve Hartley for fourth place. The JPS Lotus just ahead of the Marlboro McLaren, and Hartley gets a nice clean exit. And look at the difference it makes. A little snap of the tail for Steve Brooks in the Lotus 91, and Hartley is straight by. And those cars are period rivals, both raced in 1982 by McLaren and Lotus, and through goes the 1982 FW08. So Lucas Halusa putting his way up the grid as well, with absolute direct rivals.
And we've got 3 for the lead now as they come down into Copse Corner, one of the most famous corners at the Silverstone circuit, where they turn right at huge speed, and not an overtaking position, but certainly set the car up ready for the Beckett sweepers, and then perhaps challenge down the Hanger Straight. And Christoph Dansenburg now is coming under huge pressure from Stuart Hall and from Matt Wrigley. Matt Wrigley going a little wider into Beckett's, perhaps cut back and take a different line through Chapel. No room for him to do that there, but they come down now as one, a 12-wheel Formula 1 car. But Christoph Dansenburg going very, very defensive into Stowe. Is that going to stop Stuart Hall going through? Will he cut back on the inside here, take the outside line into Club Corner? No, he has to drop in, but Matt Wrigley comes up alongside. What a move from Matt Wrigley.
Fantastic lunge on Stuart Hall, who had to open the steering a little and give him room as he saw Wrigley coming. The March and the Candy Tyrrell, both from 1982, our race leader Christoph Dansenburg in a 1981 Williams FW07. But don't forget, that was a car that was very much a dominant force at the front of the field. Tyrrell and certainly Ram were usually qualifying further back, but Matt Wrigley goes around the outside, inside, makes the pass for the lead. So he's gone from third to first in 3 or 4 corners. And Stuart Hall in third place in the Ram March. And he may be starting to struggle a little bit with grip in the slower stuff. For having dialed off some rear wing, he's going to have to try and use the straights to get by. So Matt Wrigley leads in the 1982 ex-Michele Alboreto Candy Tyrrell. And that's not a car, I think, that led the British Grand Prix in 1982 here at Silverstone. Quite possibly not anywhere else in 82 either.
As they come once again down the Heritage pit straight towards Copse Corner, now we see the blue Candy Tyrrell of Matt Wrigley leading, but Christoph Dansenburg still right behind in the Williams FW07C, and indeed Stuart Hall just behind him. And as Stuart told us, and as Martin's just mentioned, Stuart dialed off some grip effectively by dropping the wing down, so quicker on the straights, but real challenge in the corners. And he mentioned this series of corners as being a particular challenge, the Beckett's corners, where you really need the downforce on the rear wheels. But he's right behind Christoph Dansenburg now. He does have good speed on the straight. Will he dive out? Will it be inside or outside? It's neither. He stays behind Christoph Dansenburg.
That's where he needed DRS. If only it had been invented in 1982. Dansenburg drifts out a little wide in Stowe, carried in a little bit too much speed maybe, just manages to hang on. Christoph Dansenburg really in his element in this car. Stuart's very new to the Ram March, but Christoph Dansenburg definitely knows how to race this FW07 Williams. He's been doing it for several years. Steve Hartley there in fourth place. He's now ahead of Lucas Halusa, and here comes car number 7, and that is Mike Cantillon. And Cantillon in the FW07, another FW07. And he has come from a long way back. He was 26 on the grid because that car had problems yesterday. Also noticed that from the tail of the field, Werner Dansenburg's up to 12th, but a lunge back from Jamie Constable, retakes the position as he goes back inside. So Jamie Constable back up to 6th, but he has got Mike Cantillon all over the back of him. The first of the arrows, car number 30, Simon Fish in 8th, ahead of Nick Padmore in the Lotus 88, the twin chassis car that started back in 25th place. So it looks like he's getting a little more comfortable in that car that used to spook its own original Formula One drivers when they were testing it in period. And Stuart Hall still in 3rd, trying to find a way. Oh, Christoph Danseborg runs out wide again. Can Hall get a run here through? Maggot says he has. He's got up to 2nd place. Now then, if he can survive the Beckett's S's, can he close down our race leader, Matt Wrigley? This is going to be an entertaining second half of the race because we've got 9 minutes down, 11 still to go.
Onto the hanger straight once again, the blue Candy Tyrrell of Matt Wrigley, the very familiar helmet, the green and white into Stowe Corner. Then we've got Stuart Hall next up, now past Christoph Donsenberg, and look at the gap he's put on Donsenberg already in just 2 corners and a straight.
And he's going to need to, because the fastest man last time round was the race leader Matt Wrigley, 152.4, 153.8 for Stuart Hall, 154.0 for Christoph Donsenberg, and here Mike Cantillon. This is a pass back against Jamie Constable. We saw Constable retaking that 6th position. Mike Cantillon snatching it away again once more into Brooklands. Well, so Stuart Hall now released from behind. Christoph Danseborg has now just set a new fastest race lap, a 152.2 compared to 152.5 on the last lap of the race leader. The gap is 1.6 seconds. The time is 9 minutes and 54 seconds. He has got time. Has he got enough grip in the car to keep those tyres going? It's only a short race for those big fat slicks, but these cars exert a lot of pressure on their tyres.
Coming out of Luffield through Woodcote Corner and onto the Heritage Pit Straight once again, down towards Copse Corner. We'll get that wonderful head-on shot. Here they come. Matt Wrigley turning into Copse with Stuart Hall closing all the time now. So Matt will be well aware of that. He'll be keeping a good eye out, and his team will be giving him pit signals to that effect. So into Beckett's they go. This is where Stuart Hall told us himself he will struggle because he's got less grip than is ideal. Through into the final element, the left-hander at Chapel, onto the hanger straight once again, and out they come onto the hanger down towards Stowe Corner. And with Matt Wrigley leading, it was 1.6 at the line. Very shortly we will see whether Stuart has managed to close up. I get the feeling he has. I think that's nearer a second, isn't it?
It does look like it. So the Candy Tyrrell of Matt Wrigley leading, driven in period by Michele Alboreto, and in the same season it was the Brazilian Raul Baisel who was in the Ram March. And that car often struggled to qualify, make it onto the back of the grid. Of course, in the early 80s, we were into pre-qualifying. Here is a unique Formula One car, David Purley's Lek. The Lek Refrigeration Company sponsored David Purley and designed and built their own team car. This is the battle at the head of the Fittipaldi class. This is for the late 1970s cars, before the real aerodynamics and ground effect took part in proceedings. And just behind him you can see not James Hagan,
Carlos Casada, I think.
Yeah, it is Carlos Casada, I'm sorry. Yeah, we talked from on the grid, and I'm getting my drivers mixed up, in the McLaren M26, the ex-James Hunt car. Hunt didn't drive this in his championship winning season 1976. It was the last car he drove from McLaren with teammate Jochen Mass. A particularly unsuccessful McLaren, unfortunately, the M26, and the M29 that followed it was even less sparkling. But at the moment, Carlos de Quesada enjoying every moment of driving this Formula One car. And right behind the category leader. So the Lek just keeping its nose in front. And that is Peter Williams. Williams in 14th place. Carlos Quesada with a good running going down the straight. Ewan Surgison behind has the prime view. And here is the battle for the lead overall as Quesada gets to the inside and just hangs on in front of the Lek. So Peter Williams will have to try again. Behind him, Ewan Surgison But our lead battle, nobody in the rear mirrors of Stuart Hall, so if he gets a chance to attack Matt Wrigley, he will. Wrigley's just checking the mirrors periodically to see what the distance is back to Stuart Hall. And Stewie, 152.3, 152.5 on the last lap for Matt Wrigley, and Stuart Hall a 151.777, fastest race lap this time round. The gap is down to 7 tenths at the line, but in the twisty stuff here, Matt Wrigley's going to stretch away a little. The good news for Stuart is that the last part of the last lap will be the bit where he has got the car dialed in for the hanger straight and stow, and there speed will be key.
Into Brooklands and Luffield once again, and the slower corners, probably Stuart Hall is okay through there. It's the fast sweeping corners where he'll really struggle, but on the straights, conversely, he'll be a little bit quicker perhaps than Matt Wrigley. And as they're coming down into Copse Corner now, you turn the wheel and the corner's almost blind with the barriers there, and there's a slight rise in the road, so it's all about faith that the car will turn into the left of Maggotts, then the right of Beckett's, through the centre section there, right again, and then left at Chapel, very much as it was when these cars were racing in Grand Prix. The hanger straight, a little bit shorter than it was. Stowe Corner been moved a little bit, but pretty much the same. This is where Nigel Mansell did the double shuffle on Nelson Piquet all those years ago.
Yeah, fake to the inside, go round the outside. And a classic McLaren-Williams battle. Mike Cantillon getting by Steve Hartley, and that is a change for 4th place. So Cantillon getting by. Hartley was just in front at the line. Lucas Halusa in 6th behind them, with Nick Padmore in the double chassis Lotus 88 up to 7th place now, and Werner Dansenborg in 9th place, 2 seconds behind Jamie Constable. But it is still Matt Wrigley who leads. He was really hoping to be able to get a break and get away through the traffic ahead of Stuart Hall, and he has done so. Set a new fastest race lap, 151.46. Stewie last time round a 52.0. Are the tyres starting to go away? Well, here is our lead battle. Tyrrell versus Ram March. Tyrrell team would continue beyond the 82-83 season, but the Ram team, John McDonald, wound it up fairly quickly, and that was really the end of March as a Formula One constructor. Tyrrell continued pretty much until the end of the road with Ken Tyrrell. Money was always tight in the final few years, and then was sold to Craig Pollock to become the team for which he hoped to win championships with Jacques Villeneuve. Meanwhile, here is Nick Padmore. This is the twin chassis Lotus 88. It was banned in practice, never even got to race, unlike the Brabham fan car. There's another car we need to see out in this racing. Twin chassis Lotus and the Brabham fan car, cars that were banned in period. And here again, this is a battle for position. Christophe Dansenborg versus Mike Cantillon. This is for 3rd. It's going to be a Williams that is 3rd, and it is a Williams that is 3rd. It's just the other one. So 2 FW07Cs, Mike Cantillon ahead of Christophe Dansenborg.
From 26th on the grid after problems yesterday, 26th to 3rd for Mike Cantillon. Brilliant drive.
Well, they're both FW07Cs. Mike's was the 1982 car, Christophe's a 1981 car. And although there were probably lots of detailed changes under the skin, no wholesale sea changes. And here is the Brabham, Werner Dansenborg on Jamie Constable. Jamie having a lock-up down here into Brooklands, and Werner Dansenborg in the Brabham that refused to fire away from the dummy grid, moves up the order, so he is now up to 8th.
And Nick Padmore in the twin chassis Lotus started 25th on the grid. Again, he retired yesterday, but he's now running in 6th. Just got past Lucas Halusa on that last lap.
And there is Christophe Dansenborg. Christophe in 4th place from 1st on the grid, and closing in on him from behind everyone else is his son Werner. And he's not too far behind. There's Steve Hartley. 5 seconds behind him is Nick Padmore with Lucas Halusa, but 7 seconds behind them, Werner. So he's not going to catch the cars in front. There is Steve Hartley. Crests the rise and heads down through Maggots into the Beckett's S's, chasing Christoph Dansenborg. 2.2 seconds, not going to catch the Williams in front of him, but Mike Cantillon has gone by one of the Arrows. That's car number 49, Nick Pink. It's a 1983 Arrows A5. And there, car number 1, Nick Padmore. He's got ahead of Lucas Halusa's FW08, a car that not only was allowed to race and was legal, but was pretty successful in period. Whereas the Lotus, lots of unexplored opportunities. And the deal with the Lotus, the twin chassis, basically it's got a chassis that the driver sits in, the engine and gearbox are in, and the suspension's hung off, but the body is not attached to it. You can see there's a clear gap between the top of the bodywork and the driver's cockpit, so the entire body, as one, moves up and down with the aerodynamic force. It's basically not an unsprung part of the car, like the rest of the body, the engine and transmission is. It's a sprung weight, which means it's much more controlled and much less effect on the car. It's a bizarre concept that Colin Chapman dreamed up, and clearly the authorities were worried that it was going to spark yet another arms race financially, and so it was banned on the spot. I think it spooked the drivers a little bit in testing, and Nick Padmore certainly says it is a hard thing to get to grips with. Lucas Halusa in a much more straightforward car, the FW08, and Padmore's got a problem as he's struggling to select a gear there. Looked like the car was sort of bucking around underneath him.
Or is it that electrical issue once again? Was it cutting out, perhaps? Yeah,
could be. Well, here's our race leader. Time has run out. Next time at the line, it will be the checkered flag. And Matt Wrigley has held off the challenge of Stuart Hall. The Ram March, yesterday's race winner, got close, but not close enough. They're just catching up the lucky strike shadow of Kurt Bennett, but it is the checkered flag and victory for Matt Wrigley. Stuart Hall in second place, and it will be Mike Cantillon in third in the FW07C, car number 7. And Cantillon comes out to claim the final spot on the podium. Behind him, the similar Williams of Christoph Dansenborg, ahead of the top McLaren of Steve Hartley. There is car number 4, Lucas Halusa. Nick Padmore weaves across the line in the Lotus 88, and that might be the Lotus 88's first race finish. Werner Dansenborg in 8th place in the Brabham. Jamie Constable 9th, and then Simon Fish. No, Jamie Constable has come into the pit lane, I think, or has slowed down somewhere. So Werner Dansenborg 8th, Simon Fish 9th. Jamie Constable did come across the line in the end.
In the pit lane, I think.
Ahead of Steve Brooks in the Lotus, yeah. There is Jamie Constable in the 99 Tyrrell. Not 1999, car number 99. So success for Matt Wrigley. And post-race, I wonder if Stuart will say we should have taken off more wing or maybe a bit less. Interesting, when Ed was showing us those wing adjustments, there were just 4 different holes on the wing, only 4 levels of wing adjustment. Whereas now, modern, even the smallest single-seaters will have umpteen different adjustments for the wings. Ewan Surgeson there in the red and white shadow. So that shadow driven in period by Clay Regazzoni. And Ewan always wears his Regazzoni replica helmet, and not just the right colours, but it's a Jebs helmet as well, which was the helmet used in period by Clay Regazzoni. So everybody likes their cars to look as close to the original as they can. And Ewan goes a step further by having the helmet in the cockpit looking correct as well. Well, a win at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit for the Tyrrell. Matt Wrigley claims victory in the Candy and Ceramica Imola sponsored car. And as those of you who are at the track will be very much aware, today it is at least dry, but it is pretty chilly and blustery, and unfortunately higher winds forecast for this afternoon. Well, that may not affect those of us on ground level, but it would affect you if you're throwing yourself out of a perfectly serviceable aeroplane. And so unfortunately the Red Devils, the Army parachute display team from the parachute regiment, who were hoping to display this evening, because of the forecast high winds, will not be able to jump. So there will unfortunately be no Red Devils. Have been a little bit plagued by weather this weekend, but wind, rain or sun, the Silverstone Festival has again produced some absolutely spectacular racing. Not just mouth-watering cars, not just fantastic displays, but some brilliant racing. And Matt Wrigley there claims victory in the Tyrrell. Gets welcomed back by team, friends and family. And a congratulatory handshake as well from Stuart Hall. So yesterday's race, it was Stuart on top of the pile, Matt Wrigley took second, Jamie Constable third. But it is a win today for Matt Wrigley. Jamie Constable having to take to the pits that green Tyrrell, the 99 denim sponsored Tyrrell, just didn't look quite as sharp today. But let's hear from Bryn Lucas with Matt Wrigley, our race winner.
Matt's getting a lot of applause and plaudits down here. A great drive from you. Started 8th on the grid there, Matt. That was phenomenal.
Yeah, great drive. I was sort of a bit disappointed with yesterday, although second short, there's nothing to really be disappointed about. I sort of beat myself up bad a bit this morning. And I felt, yeah, it would have been dry. I sort of had a bit, I felt better today. And I had a bit between my teeth. And, you know what I mean? When Stuart got past me in the first lap, I thought, oh no, it's going to be really hard to get back past him. And I think he just got squeezed ever so slightly somewhere, and I just managed to get a run on him, which made it a bit easier. And then he got stuck behind someone. But yeah, it's great race, great event, and so pleased to have won the race today.
When you compare the conditions to yesterday, are you a wet weather, sort of greasy weather preferer, or do you prefer this kind of nice dry condition?
No, I like the wet conditions. I've done quite a lot of Formula Ford racing, and so I quite enjoy it then with these cars. You know what I mean? There's a value to them, and I probably shouldn't have it in the back of my mind, but I think sometimes you can just have it in the back of your mind. So it did take me a couple of laps really to get into the groove of it yesterday, and Stuart drove a great race, and massive thanks to Front Row Racing, everyone there, and obviously the dad passed away the other week, so it's, that one's for him really, because we've all got the shirts on to remember him by. So yeah, great day.
Well done, well done. A bit more grip than a Formula Ford as well with the downforce you get from these cars here. Let's just go to our second place finisher, Stuart. Let's just dive into Stuart. Stuart, can we get a quick word with you? Couldn't quite do it this time, as you did yesterday, but it was a good race for us to watch.
I bet it was. Yeah, difficult with, I don't know who was in the Williams. I think it's another front row car. Made it quite difficult, and then, yeah, Wrigley escaped, and that was that. Yeah, we'll be back. We'll get them next time.
You seem like you got a bigger smile on your face today coming second than you did yesterday.
It's false. Yeah, it's just we made a good start, got through some traffic, managed to do Matt. The car was good today. The boys made some big changes, you know. Yeah, I think it was another front row car came up behind. It was, yeah, very difficult. And yeah, Matt escaped. Fair play to him though. Did a great race. You know, you got to hand it to him. They were the better car today, and we'll improve for next time. But it's been a great weekend as ever. You know, Masters put on an amazing show. It's an absolute privilege to be here and a privilege to drive these cars.
It's been a privilege for us to witness you drive the cars as well, so thank you very much indeed. Well, let's go off and find our third place finisher then. Third place, let me just dive into Mike, because I mean, I had to check your starting position, Mike, before I came to you, because like, I've got 26th. He couldn't have started 26th. He started 26th. That's what I've been told. That's what happened, and yet you're on the podium. Talk us through it.
Yeah, I started 26. We had a difficult weekend with the car. The team been amazing. We got it sorted in the end, and I was so delighted. We knew we had pace around here. You know, we knew we were fast around here, and it was such fun in the car. I can't wait to see the in-car footage of it was pretty close overtaking. But fair play to all the drivers. They were so respectful and, you know, no accidents. So I'm over the moon.
There were some fantastic performances from yourself, from Nick Padmore as well. He climbed up to 7th or 8th, I think, as well. Brilliant stuff. Well done to you.
Fantastic.
A great show for us all. There we go. Back to commentators. We've got the podium coming up in just a few, but right now back to you, Martin.
There you go, Mike Cantillon doing a lot of justice to that ex-Keke Rosberg Williams FW07 drive from 26th to 3rd, of which the Flying Finn would have been very happy. And the car that Stuart Hall had so much trouble getting by was the race leader, Christoph Dansenborg. He ended up in 4th ahead of the McLaren of Steve Hartley and Lucas Halusa, but it was Matt Wrigley who topped the podium, having started in 8th place, 2nd yesterday. Werner Dansenborg from last when the Brabham wouldn't fire came through to 8th, and Nick Padmore 7th in a twin chassis Lotus ahead of Simon Fish. Jamie Constable finishing 10th in the pit lane. In our earlier cars category, Carlos de Quesada claiming that in 15th place ahead of Peter Williams in the Lec and Chris Perkins in the Matchbox 30. So they were the top 3 in the Fittipaldi class. In the Lauda class, James Hagan's Benetton livery Tyrrell was first there.